has decided to, make further investments within the city of Sunland Park and the surrounding areas for water, wastewater improvements. We do also welcome the decision to terminate the joint powers agreement. I think this provides us an opportunity as a community, as the city of Sunland Park and the southern part of the region, to really look at the options of how the service area should be within this community. Now, I guarantee you that service will be uninterrupted as we proceed through these initial conversations with the county about what that future is going to be. We don't know what it's going to look like at the moment, but this is the very beginning of a legal process of determining what that future is. Now, we do have 4 years to figure out what that transition is going to look like, who's going to provide the service, or whether or not the service in the county should stay in the county or the service in the city should stay in the city. Now, we have met with our city council on Tuesday, and we have discussed some of the issues that the county has brought forth. And we have taken direction from the city council. And coming next Wednesday at a regular council meeting, our staff is going to be presenting a resolution that is requesting support from the city council to establish our own water and wastewater department to make sure that we are prepared in case of the decision that the county wants to separate the assets and we have to create our own water wastewater service. That resolution will be presented to the council along with a request of $1.2 million to help address sediment issues that have originated from the tanks being improperly or not maintained over the last 40, 50 years, or as long as the life of these tanks have been in existence. This is going to be at the expense of the city of Sunland Park, and this is one of the things that we will continue to do to continue offering support to the water and wastewater services that serve our community. And that's not the only thing we've done. Over the last several years, we have been working in conjunction with the water and wastewater utility to integrate both our operations when it comes to infrastructure improvements. We've included infrastructure improvements in the developments in the Anapa community, recently in the Riverside community, replacing water and wastewater lines in those communities. As these communities were built way before this was even a city, so these communities were in desperate need of upgrade. And we will continue to work. Our work is not done there, to continue to work to provide services within those areas and improve the infrastructure within the community. But the biggest ask at this point is that $1.2 million from the city funds to help support CRRUA in addressing the discolorization in the water in times of certain emergencies within the community. That'll be necessary to address the tanks, the Anapa tank, the Meadow Vista tank, and the Tierra Madre tank, all located within the city of Sunland Park, and hopefully reduce the number of incidents of discolored water within the city of Sunland Park. I do want to reiterate that we remain committed in working with the county to make sure that we have a seamless transition to this process, and that we will continue to make sure that the city of Sunland Park is represented to the best of its ability, and that we will do what is the best interests of this community. Am I missing anything else?
No, sir.
Anything else?
No, sir.
And I do want to recognize, I do have my city manager. He's also a part of the CRRUA board today. My public works director is also part of the CRRUA board, representing the city there today. And then we also have the executive director of the CRRUA board, of the CRRUA utility present here. At this time, if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to field those questions.
We've been hearing a lot of information, but not a lot of clarity on what this means in practice. I mean, are you going to be looking to establish new water treatment plants? If you're splitting the utility, what does that mean as far as workforce? I don't know if the executive director could chat about that. Do you bring in new workers? What does this mean on the ground, right?
Absolutely. So first and foremost on ours is to get the authority to create such a department within the city of Sunland Park. Now, we are exploring the opportunity of the possibilities of transferring some of those employees out to the city of Sunland Park. But when it comes to the infrastructure is not going to change. The infrastructure is going to be there. And I think it's important to, once the study that the county is doing identifies all of the assets within the organization, we have to negotiate and come to terms as to how those assets are going to be distributed or what that future is going to be for those assets.
So if the infrastructure stays the same, why would customers have confidence in the system that's failed them up to now?
Well, absolutely. And I think one of the biggest things is investment. At the end of the day, it has to be investment in the utility. And this is where the county, that's why I mentioned, I'm very happy to see the county looking to make investments in this utility because it is much, much needed. And also, this is a call to the state to make investments. Historically, we have seen that state funds stay in the northern part of the state, but millions of dollars go up to the state every single year, and we want to make sure that those dollars are being diverted, some of those dollars are being diverted back to the community and invested here, especially when we have a growing industrial hub to the west of us. We are one of the fastest growing cities in the state of New Mexico right now, so investments from the states are critical for one of the brightest lights within the state.
Whether or not those state funds come, definitely seems like CRRUA's infrastructure needs money. Where do you see that money coming from, whether the state helps or not?
Absolutely. So obviously, we are continuing to work with the utility to apply for funding. That's one component, one avenue. We have dedicated staff over the last several years to help support the CRRUA staff. The city staff has been able to support CRRUA staff in applying for funds. Unfortunately, we have not received funding, or as much funding as we would have liked in the past. As a city, we can tap into other resources, and that's why we're going to be asking the city council for $1.2 million to address some of the immediate concerns that are facing this community. At the end of the day, also, we're going to have to consider what the rates are within the community. But I do want to clarify one thing, that the growth of the area cannot be based solely on the ratepayers that exist here today. So we have worked in conjunction with a utility to develop development agreements where some of that burden is pushed over to the developers to make sure that they make investments in the community and that it's not put on the backs of the people who live here today.
Sunland County held a press conference recently. Sunland Park was not invited to that. What is your working relationship with the county right now?
Well, this is all pretty new. I officially got the notice on the 21st of the termination, although because it was a public decision, we are aware of the situation. But it's going to be a lengthy process. And I appreciate the county doing that communication with us. But I think as we continue this process, we have to be clear about what our intentions are on either side. And that's why we're also hosting this press conference to make sure that it is out in the air as to what we're considering into the future for the city of Sunland Park.
In this instance, where would residents of Sunland Park continue to access their utility services?
So for the time being, nothing's going to change when it comes to access and operations. Until we come with a plan between the city and the county of what that's going to look like, whether it's the assets divided and each entity provides service within their jurisdiction, or another entity providing service in the area, that's going to be determined in the future. But until we come into that negotiation and finalize that negotiation, we don't know what that future stands or where that future stands. However, this service should remain uninterrupted, and CRRUA will continue to provide water, wastewater services to the area.
Mr. Pereira, what is the level of reserves that the city has? You say you're asking for 1.2 million from reserves, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have 1.2 million in reserves? And the second thing is, what is the bonding capacity that you have moving forward?
Absolutely. So we have already exercised our bonding capacity. We do have some monies in the reserves. Now, we have been very good stewards of our finances here within the city of Sunland Park, and we have been able to put a cushion for in case of an emergency within the city of Sunland Park. And since we are now seeing that the county wants to come in and do that investment, we're also going to come in and pony up that support where it's most needed. Hopefully, the county can match some of these funds, as they have a lot more resources available at their disposal compared to the city. I mean, in general, I have a $15 million operating fund, but during my tenure here, over the last 12 years, we have been operating in a surplus. And we want to make sure, that we never end up in a situation that we were in 12 years ago when I first started, where we had to make cuts within the city. So we have been building up for situations like this to make sure that we can and won't ever suffer like we did in the past.
So we can be sure that you can get 1.2 million sort of fast enough?
Absolutely. So right now, that's money that the city has in the bank. Now, of course, this is the request that's going to be submitted to the council. The council is a financial purse of the city, and they will make that decision. But we are going to the council with that request.
How are residents from Sunland Park sure that you're going to work together to find, like, for example, fix these problems when, for example,
You know, being that it is illegal, a lawsuit, I cannot comment on it directly, but I have to review. I haven't read the lawsuit at this moment. But at the end of the day, as the city of Sunland Park, I have a responsibility to the citizens of Sunland Park. The county made the decision to terminate the contract with the city. This forces us to go into a different conversation than previously as the joint utility. So at the end of the day, you know, more than 80% of the service the service that we provide is to residents of the city of Sunland Park. Now, because we are a smaller entity, we are more agile in our ability to do things when it comes to execution. So hopefully, that can help improve the way that we execute things within the operations. And if the utility is within the city of Sunland Park, I think that will provide much more better responsibility and response to issues.
Can you offer some comments on the scale of what you're trying to accomplish here, right? I mean, setting up a new water utility in a small town, big, complex task. I don't think you expected to do that maybe when you're in an office. I just wonder, you know, it's a big task you're undertaking, right?
Well, absolutely. But I think starting something new is always a challenge, right? But I think it's more than just me who's making these actions or taking these actions. I have a team of engineers. I have a team of people who work with the city of Sunland Park who have been offering support over the last several years to the utility because we know that they were struggling. So we've been offering support behind the scenes at zero cost to them. So we have an understanding of the situation. We have an understanding of what needs to be accomplished. And let me remind you that before CRRUA was established, the city of Sunland Park had a water utility department. So it does have the capacity to do that. And this was transferred over to CRRUA when this joint powers agreement was done. Now, this was before my time. But it can and should be able to be an option for the citizens of this community to be able to have local individuals running the utility. Thank you. Go ahead.
We have an online question from the Albuquerque Journal. A February inspection by the EPA identified non-functional emergency eye wash stations at CRRUA treatment facilities, presenting a risk to workers. Have these assets been addressed?
Yes, we work with the.
I'm going to defer that question to the executive director.
Yes, regarding those eye wash stations, we did get a contractor to come in and get them fixed. We had fixed them previously. However, during the freeze time that we had, some of them became inoperable, so we have to go back and get those fixed. So we do periodic checks regarding our facilities, and we'll continue to do so as time permits.
I have another question from the Albuquerque Journal. They said also, since this is a new initiative, with the 1.2 million be coming from reserve funds, will the city discuss the potential for a tax-based way to recoup the investments?
At this point, we're not looking to increase taxes within the city of Sunland Park. The request today, or excuse me, the request on Wednesday is going to be to dip into those cash reserves from the city to address the issue. But no, not an additional tax to the city. Let me get back here and then
A question in Spanish is good for you?
yeah,
right now?
go ahead.
All right. Bueno, en términos prácticos, lo que la gente quiere saber es si va a tener mejor agua y si le van a subir el precio del servicio o no. Dentro de todos estos cambios, ¿cuál es la postura de ustedes?
Sí, ahorita lo que estamos viendo es qué va a ser el futuro del servicio de agua dentro de la comunidad de Sunland Park en la parte sur del condado de Doña Ana. De cuando se viene a los rates, al precio, eso es una conversación que se va a hacer más adelante, pero ahorita no le puedo contestar si sí o no. Ahora se está haciendo un estudio de cuánto cuesta para proveer el servicio dentro de la comunidad, al área de servicio, y cuando nos finalicen ese estudio, entonces tendremos esa conversación. Ahora, a lo que yo anticipo es de que va a determinar que no hay suficientes fondos para mantener todo el sistema que existe hoy. Por eso es importante de que el condado y el estado hagan inversiones dentro de esa comunidad para apoyar los esfuerzos del desarrollo económico que existe aquí y también la comunidad que vive dentro de Sunland Park.
Quiere decir que el agua no va a mejorar de calidad si no vienen los fondos.
Exacto, todo está basado a fondos, ¿verdad? Para mejorar sistemas tienes que pagar por ese sistema. Nada es gratis en este mundo. Eso tenemos que asegurarnos de que haya fondos. ¿A cómo se va a ver el plan? No te puedo decir porque no sé qué es el plan del condado en este momento. De qué plan ellos tienen para el condado, qué plan tienen para la gente de Sunland Park. Eso no te sabré decir. Ahora, estamos comprometidos nosotros como comunidad de que lo que hagamos sea para este bienestar, para continuar mejorando el sistema de agua. El sistema de arsénico ya ha habido mejoras desde que hemos empezado nosotros con la nueva mesa directiva. Ha mejorado las plantas de arsénico y estamos haciendo pruebas más seguidas para asegurarnos de que no estén fallando los sistemas. El sistema de hard water, el agua que contiene mucho mineral, ese va a ser un problema de largo plazo porque el acuífero donde agarramos agua tiene muchos minerales. Eso va a ser un problema a largo plazo. Y luego también es el sistema de la descolorización del agua. Eso es lo que estamos tratando de arreglar con este pedido que le vamos a hacer al Cabildo el miércoles. Esos 1.2 millones de dólares sería para limpiar y restaurar los tanques de agua que existen dentro de la comunidad de Sunland Park, que no se les ha dado mantenimiento en la historia que hemos investigado del sistema.
Just going back to the changes here, lots up in the air left to be decided, but should people at CRRUA, should they fear for their jobs? Will you keep everyone on as is? What's the future?
You know, it's as we got the news, that was one of the main priorities and concerns that we were also worried about, and that's why we're going to move forward with the request to establish a water wastewater department to make sure that we can provide a transition to individuals, if possible. We hope that there's going to be time to plan this out, appropriately, but it should. Our hope is that the staff remains confident that there will be a provider here, and that many of these individuals will continue to have a job in the area, and perhaps within the utility as well.
But there could be layoffs. There could be people.
Right now, the board is not looking to lay off any individual.
Really quick, you mentioned that you are not aware of the plans for the county. But have you had any conversations with the county? Have you had any conversations with the state as to what you guys are asking, what you guys are wanting or needing?
The county has, other than the meeting on Friday, do you want to?
Sure, I can explain. So, good afternoon. Yeah, we've had 2 meetings with the county. We had a meeting this past Friday, which was the 23rd. And we also had a meeting yesterday afternoon following a closed session to discuss some of the concerns and some of the must-act now challenges, including providing stability and confidence for the employees as well as the stakeholders, community, the development community, the businesses, so on and so forth. So the early discussions, you've heard some of those with the county. They're setting up a website that will create or provide a platform for citizens that have questions, that have concerns, that have issues with water, so we can capture those. On our side, we agreed that we're going to develop a policy this month in June so that we can work with CRRUA and they can adopt it. Again, CRRUA remains intact, so that board will have to adopt a policy and how we're going to manage those complaints, providing transparency, communication, and making sure that we're tracking concerns and we're closing them out, because a lot of what we see is we need to separate what's fact and what's fiction. Other initiatives that need to happen now, we've discussed, as the mayor pointed out, 80% or greater of the customers for CRRUA are citizens of Sunland Park. Therefore, we should have responsibility to administer the fiscal services that are currently being administered by the county. If there's a complaint to date, they don't drive 42 miles to Las Cruces, okay? They come here. So we're better positioned geographically to be able to respond. We want to be able to meet with people one-on-one. Folks in the community have always known that we've got folks here in the past that have come, and I ask them to come in if they have a concern. That's how we're going to be addressing some of these issues. So in addition to the website, there's discussion about setting up some water stations, maybe at a discounted price. That becomes a legal issue. So we have the 2 attorneys, the CRRUA attorney and county attorney, looking at, is there a violation of anti-donation? So there's a number of things that we're looking at right now working together. We continue to have more meetings. This is going to be a long-term process. It's a marathon. But we're also, I will say this Wednesday, we have, as part of a resolution, a recommendation to hire a community engagement person that their whole focus is going to be engaging the community, the ability to communicate with them, to take their concerns one-on-one, to be able to bring those back to us, to be a liaison with the county, to work with their communications coordinator, and really increase our engagement with the community. We know this is a very diverse demographic. If you just look at the border culture. So we have a lot of challenges ahead of us. We're taking the right steps. We would anticipate we would have many more briefings as we continue to make positive progress. Everything to date, I can tell you, has been positive progress. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Out of curiosity, were you personally blindsided by the county's decision to terminate the partnership?
I do want to say it was a surprise because no other communication was made other than what I had heard at that Board of County Commissioners meeting. So it was a surprise. So this puts us into high gear and to make sure that we are prepared for these negotiations as the process gets started.
Would it have helped you to have a little heads up so you could start laying the
Absolutely. I think a heads up would have been beneficial. Like that, we would have probably had done a joint press conference last week in preparation of this change.
This for the city manager. You mentioned some of the things, the filtration station and some of the other things that the county has mentioned. They also talked about testing strips to be distributed possibly. The state as well suggested that CRRUA or the city do that. Is that something that
I'm going to ask our executive director to respond because that's a technically challenging topic you just brought up.
Yes, thank you very much. You can repeat the question? He spoke about filtration system and other things that could be happening. Something other than the county also mentioned was testing strips for residents distributed free of charge in the interim during this time period. Thank you very much. To address the first question regarding filtration stations, it's something that the county has offered, which I believe that also the city is also endorsing, but I wanted to make sure that in terms of the water quality, that the guiding parameters for water quality are set by EPA and both by NEMD. When we're looking at, I've heard several folks speak right now about the concern about the arsenic levels. Well, the arsenic levels are in compliance based off of the rolling annual average. Yes, CRRUA did a self non-compliant sample, and we made sure that we were transparent and let the public know. Those non-compliant samples that we take are to test the operations that we currently are going through with our special operating procedures. So I just wanted to make sure and clear that the arsenic levels to the community, to the public, and to the media, that the arsenic levels are in compliance with Safe Drinking Water Standard Acts. To address the second question regarding the test strips, when we purchase the test strips from vendors, there's a very clear cautionary statement that when you are handling the test strips, that they need to be handled with appropriate protective equipment. In this case, make sure you're wearing latex gloves. There's certain steps that need to be done. And then secondly, it is a requirement by NEMD. There's only 2 areas which can be tested, and that is point of entry and point of exit of the treatment in terms of testing. Sending out test strips individually, there can be other non-variable factors which are inside of the house which could be leading to false positives. So you got to be very careful what is being asked for. But the most important reason on the test strips, why it's cautionary, is because it's a clear label on there that there is mercury that is on those test strips. So when that is on there, you can put the public at risk. So that is not one step that we feel comfortable taking. Obviously, if NEMD wants to go ahead and put that out and hand those out, that's a position that they can take. Thank you.
And I just wanted to add, I believe we pay $150 per test.
Regarding the test, yes, it's a little bit more than that after we, once you account the operational staff that does the test and actual the testing strips. But the test, I would say is probably about, each one that goes out is probably going to be between $50 to $60. But once you account for the work that gets done, it's an exceedance of 160.
So I just want to clarify, there's a cost associated to just handling test strips as well. I mean, aside from the safety concern, the health concern of handling mercury, there's also a cost associated with that. To do a blanket, universal, donation or giving away free test strips, there is cost associated with that.
Probably because of the way your network is configured, the non-conforming, I think would be the right word, test that you were clear about, it's not the water that the city urban area drinks, right? It's like an industrial park or something like that.
I'm having trouble understanding.
Yeah, I had trouble
Yes.
phrasing it.
Yes.
You have different plants that clean this arsenic. The one that was non-performing is not the one that feeds the regular Sunland Park population. It's the one in the industrial park.
The test that exceeded the parts per billion, it was in the industrial complex and not within the.
Yes, thank you for that. Thank you for that comment. Yes, first of all, the test that was being reported for CRRUA's self non-compliance test that was being reported, this test was taken out of the industrial arsenic treatment facility, which mainly feeds the non-residential area of the county. Now, there is a portion, a very small portion, in a subdivision called Valencia Parks, which does receive that portion of the water distribution in that system, to answer your question. But at no point was the public ever at risk regarding the arsenic levels. Thank you.
And I just wanted to add on that one, as the water is treated, it's dumped into the tank, which has diluted, and has water that has met the standard, right? And what we're doing, the additional testing that we're doing, is actually working because we're catching these issues in advance. Rather than waiting for the state to come in and do the testing, we're making sure that we're addressing the issues way in advance, and that we don't have the problems that existed in the past. Yes, sir.
While you're talking, if you get that $1.2 million from the city council, what is that going to improve any infrastructure, or is that just to get this new authority on?
No. The $1.2 million is specifically for the restoration and the sediment cleaning of the tanks that are within the city of Sunland Park. And that's the Anapra, Meadow Vista, and Tierra Madre tanks. These tanks, as far as what the CRRUA staff has identified, they have never been cleaned in their entire history. So sediment has built on the bottom of these tanks, and that is what has contributed to discolored water in certain areas. So the $1.2 million is to clean those tanks and restore those tanks.
I have a question. So there's been a lot of concerns over the years about water quality and safety. So what steps are you all taking to gain community trust back?
So I think the action that we're taking, or we're going to be taking for next Wednesday, is one of those steps. Again, we welcome the decision that the county has made, because this actually puts us at the forefront of deciding what it's going to be like, what this water service area is going to be like, who should be responsible in this area. And if we take it to the voters, I guarantee that a lot of the voters are going to be supportive of the many initiatives that we're working on. Now, I know that the issues that we're facing today didn't happen overnight. The issues that we're trying to deal with today have been issues from deferred maintenance from many, many, many years. And that's going to take time to fix. But we're working to build capacity within the city to help, further bridge that communication with the people that we serve. Also bridge communication with the entities that we work with, because there's a lot of disinformation as well that's being distributed, and that does absolutely nobody any good service. So we're going to make sure that we provide information. Clearly, the testing that we're doing internally, we made it clear that the CRRUA board made it clear that has to be made public. There was no obligation to do that, but we want to make sure that we are consistent with the messaging and that we are producing, and that holds this entity accountable. And right now, if CRRUA is not going to be in existence, that sentiment we carry over to the city of Sunland Park, or whatever the service area, whoever's going to be providing the water is going to look like, because we don't want to go through this situation again. and it's going to take time. So we hope that the people will be patient as we work through these processes. We hope that the county continues to make investments in this area, and the state and the federal government make investments in this area, because it is a shining example of what can really be. As New Mexico works to diversify its economy, we're one of the best places for that to happen. And we're going to continue to growing as a municipality, and many resources are needed for that to be accomplished.
Have you consulted with El Paso Water at all, which also operates an arsenic treatment plant not far from here, similar geography? Have you consulted with them at all about this process?
I'd have to defer. It's a different state, so I know there's yeah, and the different standards are this is what I'm communicating over here. Yeah.
But it's kind of a goofy thing considering they have an arsenic treatment plant, same geography, right? It's just kind of
Yeah, and El Paso has a lot more resources than we do, and they have better economies of scale than we do at the time being. So I know it might be easy, but because of the state lines, it does complicate things a little bit. Press. ¿Les pregunta? A ver. Real quick.
My name is Isabel Santos, and I was city councilor in the city of Sunland Park, mayor pro tem, and then I remember when I was sick there, all the time the city of Sunland Park paid for all the things that the water needed. I ask you there why the city they need to pay for all the problems that we have with the water, because I never saw the county pay for something, or that they come here and a person to know what happened with the water. Now that we have the problem with CRRUA, for me was a surprise that they say that I know that they don't want to continue with the agreement. Why?
I can't speak for the county. That's a question for the county.
Responsibility too, but they don't did nothing for us.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Really quick, just to clarify, and just as a nuts and bolts. Right now, CRRUA will stay on for at least the next 4 years while changes happen.
Now, we have 4 years to figure out what the plan is going to be. Now, in the press conference that the county did, they seem to want to be aggressive about the process, mentioning 6 months to a year. If that's the trajectory that they're looking at, we ourselves are going to make sure that we are prepared for whatever that is. But at the end of the day, we will continue to represent the citizens of the city of Sunland Park and make sure that we provide service that is of good quality and that it continues to improve every single day.
So people still pay CRRUA?
Yes.
CRRUA is for...
CRRUA still exists as normal. Everything is as normal until a transition plan is made.
I have a real quick question for the director.
Go ahead.
As far as the maintenance to the tanks, to the 3 tanks that you were mentioning, how old are these tanks, and why was there no maintenance done to them?
I can't answer for the previous administration, but what I can tell you is during the 2023 sanitary survey, we did identify those when we did our inspections on them, and that was one of the first items that we began to put on the list. Of course, the operation and maintenance of these tanks is based on funding availability. So when you're making decisions on these items, there's still other infrastructure that we've been working on. For example, the North Wastewater Collection System, for example, upgrades to some of the subdivisions that are on there. So this is on our task list. Now, certainly having the city's assistance for them to step forward at this moment and provide this funding is a benefit to all of the community.
How old are these tanks?
Approximately around 20 to 30 years.
What's the lifespan of a tank like?
I don't have that information in front of me, but what we'd like to do is get them inspected once every 5 years. And then with that inspection comes what necessary upgrades. For example, some of the other tanks, they're a little bit newer. So the inspections that come back on there are items that when we're looking at addressing operation and maintenance, they don't need operation and maintenance like these 3 critical tanks that we have right now. These 3 critical tanks to do the restoration and sediment removal is one step in the right direction to assisting with some of the discoloration issues that were taking place.
And I do want to say that some of these tanks are actually maybe older than 30 years. They might be older than 40 years old. I'm 38. I've lived here my entire life, and I know the Anapra tank has been there for way longer, and the one in Meadow Vista, which is just up the street from where I live, has been there as far as I can remember. So I know these tanks are upwards of around 40 years of age.
Is there any chance of, like, you know, some sort of hybrid relationship with the county, or is it, at this point, do you see it happening within this next 4 years that the City of Sunland Park will operate with CRRUA and the county might do their own?
So the scenarios that I anticipate or that we'll be discussing is a scenario where the county operates the service area within, you know, the CRRUA service area, which includes the City of Sunland Park and Doña Ana County. There's the idea of the City of Sunland Park assuming responsibilities within the City of Sunland Park and providing service to the county in the service area. There's the idea of dividing the two. The county provides service within the county jurisdiction, the city within the city jurisdiction. There's the idea of creating another entity and working through that. There's the idea of privatizing the utility, just like El Paso Electric operates the utility. This would be a privatized utility. And then there's also the idea of still having a local governing body, governing in another legal entity, and contracting a third-party private company to manage the system. I think those are the ideas that are in the air of what can happen, and we'll continue to explore what those implications would have on the people that we represent. Any other questions? And then I know I didn't do much in Spanish, but if you want me, I can stay extra and do Spanish. Okay, okay, perfecto. So todo es un principio. All right, no, thank you guys. I'll do the ones in Spanish. Well, I'll get closer to that one. Yeah.